Thank you so much, Liz. And she absolutely puts her finger on the right button when she says that the key to making a real difference in this space is genuine collaboration. And the analogy I always use is that if we think about the effort to make sure that everyone is digitally literate, is that we should think about it as a sort of intricate French clock with lots of cogs of different sizes. And it may be that there's a cog which is a small cog, and there might be a cog which is a bigger one. However, that clock is not going to work unless all of those cogs are turning. And I think if we see this space in those terms, it really helps, because it's not about this is a hub, that is a hub. It's about all of the efforts being made by organisations such as yours to make a very, very real difference to the future of people of every age in this country and indeed across the entire world. One of the things which I feel is often not appreciated is just how hard that is. Because when you talk about the hard to reach are the hard to reach. It is not easy. It's not a question of simply having a great website or a great initiative. It's not as easy as that, otherwise this problem would not exist for us. And it needs the effort and the commitment of individuals and organisations to really carry this through, and it needs them to connect with each other so that French clock works very beautifully. And I'm going to introduce someone now who I feel has made a very significant difference in this space. I know that he, and he'll probably be incredibly embarrassed when I say this about him. He's wondering, what is she going to say about me? But he has perhaps almost single-handedly made a real difference between the way that housing interacts with their sort of people using social housing and with people sort of working in that particular area. So I'd like him to come up and talk about his vision for the future and his experiences. Would you please welcome Nick Atkin.
Blimey, morning. Same stage as Maggie Philbin. It's like TV royalty. I was like amazed when I saw the gig for today. And following Helen and also B, who I've seen speak before, it just shows that there's hope for everybody if you blag. And I suppose that's part of what I wanted to talk about. In terms of just a bit about me, why is housing relevant? 1 in 6 homes in this country are social housing. It's as simple as that. So in terms of route to market, route to hard to reach groups, how you get to people who actually sometimes are very excluded, there's a very easy route through either housing associations or councils that have retained their stock. So a bit about me, about 10 years ago, blagged my way through an interview, got a job as a chief exec, got no idea what I was going to do, and the sort of, I probably still haven't. I also have a vice chair of a CCG, so I see the health framework as well, but I'm trying not to touch on health. Main thing is I love tech, but I love tech because it's an enabler, not because it's a gadget, although I have to say I'll buy anything Apple except from an Apple Watch because they're absolutely crap. Anyway, so a bit about that. I suppose what I wanted to do really was sort of share our journey. So Halton's by no means got it cracked, and just to sort of get some things clear, Halton is not the internet superhighway, okay? It's sandwiched between Manchester and Liverpool. It hasn't got some sort of super digital hub. It's like any sort of northwest town that you'd imagine. But some things that we found really. First thing really, if you take nothing else from this, our experience is the future is mobile. How people choose to access services, how people want to access services is predominantly mobile. And I'm going to give you some sort of explanations why. First of all, in terms of what devices are actually selling and are predicted to sell. The charts tell their own story. Very clear, very clear in terms of what people are buying is tablets and smartphone devices. And also, just to reassure Liz, 9% of households in the UK no longer have a landline. We do, we have a BT landline. But we have BT mobile for the kids as well. But it's really interesting, isn't it? Because the only reason I have a landline is so that I can have broadband. And I don't know about you, but on the odd occasion that the landline rings, everybody in the house looks around and goes, what the bloody hell's that? And everybody goes, where's the handset? We've got no idea where it was left. But it's really interesting to me, and that's how quickly things have shifted. And it's shifted, and it's already happened. So 2 years ago, accessing internet through a mobile device overtook desktop or what you class as fixed line. So this is clearly happening across the country. Whether or not it's how you choose to access the internet, that's the facts in terms of what's happening. 1 in 3 people look at their smartphone within 5 minutes of getting up. Why it takes them that long, I've got no idea. But some actually do take that long. And I think if you still don't believe me, we've got the rise of the bogger. Now, there's going to be a bit of an audience participation here. Some of you have heard me say this before. Hands up if you are one of these. You make the most of every minute. Come on, get your hands in the air. If you use your phone whilst doing other things because it's an efficient use of your time. Well, actually, there's a lot of lies in the room because 75% of the UK population admits this. Keep your hands in the air just for a minute. I know you had your... Everybody else look round. Make a note of the faces. Don't buy a used phone off eBay off those people. But that's why mobile is so important. Next big myth to shatter is that people who live in social housing don't have access to the internet. It's complete and utter tosh. And I'm going to explain our experience in terms of why we have changed our view on that. So about 2.5 years ago, we asked the question, we have these questions in housing that we have to ask, and one of them was, do you have access to the internet in your home? 17% of our customers said, yes, we have access to the internet in our home. But it made no sort of connection with reality in terms of what was actually happening, in terms of how people were accessing our services. And so we did quite a bit of work talking to our customers, and if I was to summarise, they basically said, well, yeah, of course I've got access to the internet. I've got a smartphone or I've got a tablet device, but you said in your home, so I thought you meant one of them Wi-Fi things with a wire that comes through the wall, and I haven't got one of them. But yeah, of course I've got access to the internet. I don't live in the bloody dark ages. 3 months later, we asked the same question to all our customers, and that figure changed to 63% because we changed the in your home to being such as through a smartphone or tablet or mobile device. So what was very clear was that our customers do have access to mobile internet. We've now spoken to just over 5,500 households. Interestingly, please don't tweet this because I've got bored later at my organisation. My chair will kill me. But we spoke to more households about their digital access and capability than we did before we spent £150 million improving the homes. So it's just a really interesting sort of approach. And what we found basically is that 3/4 of our customers have access themselves and another 11% know where to get access. So in effect, about 9 out of 10 of our customers can access the internet if they need to. And what we also did is we got some data from Experian. We overlaid that in terms of GIS mapping onto the areas where our customers live. And what was interesting is that housing was the only service where customers chose not to access that service digitally. All other things, all other aspects of their lives were being accessed digitally. So, if you still don't believe me, look at what's happening in the world of banking. In the world of banking, if you think about how you banked 8 years ago, you think about how you bank now, basically the future has gone from in branch to over the phone, and it's now going to app through mobile device. The figures speak for themselves, and you have got basically hundreds of millions of transactions in terms of payments. You've also got logins looking at 11 million a day. What's interesting is, what's the same number in terms of branch visits? That's just 0.9 million. So the previous way that people access those services has completely changed. And I believe that that's the way the whole world's going, and indeed that's our thing for housing. So, any FDs in the room? Any finance people in the room? Don't be shy. No. Usual miserable buggers. My FD is a miserable sod. So what I want to share with you is my way that I sort of convinced him that we needed to invest in this area. So this is the business case for digital projects. First thing, stop looking at digital as being something that you depreciate over 248 million years. Digital is the same as a human resource. It's a revenue spend, and it's something that's disposable within a year. As soon as you get that into your head, you'll be absolutely fine. And that's a big shift in terms of culture in the organisation. Tech is cheap as chips, and it's disposable. And that's now how we view it. Just 2 killer stats that absolutely make the case for the investment, and there are these two. I'm going to take you through each one. The first one is £15 versus 10p. £15 is the average cost of somebody in a housing organisation who normally goes out onto one of our neighbourhoods, tiptoes up the path without an appointment, tickles the door with a feather, runs away before anybody comes to the door, and then puts in a massive expenses claim. Sorry, I sort of exaggerate for effect, but that's the in-person transaction. 10p is the average cost of a digital transaction, and indeed, the system that we've introduced, that cost for us is 3p. We have over 200,000 transactions a year, so that gives you an indication of the difference in terms of savings and cost in terms of investment. The second one, for us, any housing people in the room? I know at least there's a couple. Yeah, okay, right. So the thing that really changed my mind on all of this was housing is a fantastic business model. We don't collect 2/3 of our income. Imagine that, Helen, 2/3 of your income every year guaranteed. You just sit back and it just comes in the form of a bank transfer because of housing benefit. But that's about to change. Universal credit means that that money will go to our customers and they will choose who they pay. And guess what? Rent is only 9th on the list of priorities for our customers. So I looked at that 65%, which for us is about 28 million, and I thought, blimey, how many people do I currently have in my organisation to collect what is just 1/3 of our income from people who are generally able to pay because they've got the financial means and are used to paying us? How many more people am I going to have to employ to collect what will be the same amount of money? And that was where you start to really think we've got to radically shake things up. So that's what drove it. And we have a target that 90% of our customer-generated transactions will be online self-serve by 2018. That's a clear target, really clear. Everybody knows what we're aiming for. Nothing else, that's what the focus is about. And that's because if we don't, I don't understand, unless you radically transform your business model as a housing association, how you're going to survive in a post-universal credit landscape when 65% of your income basically is going to be significantly at risk. Interestingly, anybody want to guess what the last thing anybody will default on from the research? No, mobile. And I got that from O2, and they were very smug when they told me that. So they were really pleased to tell me that. So next thing, in terms of business case, how do you convince your board? Board members always look very sincere when they're looking at stuff. I got really frustrated because I did beautiful presentations to board, I did beautiful reports, and my board members didn't get it. So I probably about the 3rd time we went to board, I basically developed this. So it's the housing graph of doom, okay? And I got up on the whiteboard in a real sort of fit of frustration and drew this. But it's very simple, and I think this is what changed the mindset. So we know in a post-universal credit that up to 2018, that the number of transactions in our business is going to increase almost exponentially. And what we're saying is that we need to get the average cost per transaction down at least the same rate as that increase if the overall cost isn't going to increase. Yeah? You get that? Everybody get that? Yeah, sorry about the sort of squiggle in the line, but halfway through my phone went off, so I sort of jolted a bit. But as you can see, that's basically the premise, and that's what our board looked at that and went, well, why don't you just explain it like that? That makes sense. So what I'm trying to do is just explain what the sort of business case is within a housing context and really what sort of changed our minds. The thing we got wrong, massively wrong, we didn't set a starting point and we weren't clear where we wanted to get to. So if people say to me, what one thing would you do differently if you had your time again? I'd do this, which is what we've developed, which is Where are you starting from and where do you want to get to? And because otherwise you will stray into, we want to be fantastic at everything, but we're not really clear where we want to be. And you don't necessarily need to be that, but actually what you need to be is omnichannel and actually enabling your services to be delivered in a cost-effective way that enables you to survive as a business. So we have developed, our first strategy was that we would give away shed loads of tablets to our customers as part of a digital deal, and then we'd exclude them from the phones. So we've done a partnership with O2, but to date we've only had to give away about 200 tablets, much less than we thought. What we've also done is set out the strategy, which is on the Prezi, which I'll tweet a link to. But that's our strategy. We don't have a 200-page digital strategy. That is our strategy, nothing else. And that's what we basically have run the whole program with. One page infographic, really clear, people really get where we're heading. So the other thing that I'd say about tablets is that you can get some of the cheaper versions, and if you want more information on that, there's a guy called Brett Sadler who's done a really good blog on that. So our approach is digital first. Digital first, at the heart of that, is basically an app. Really simple, no more than 3 clicks to do anything. We've got 3,700 people registered and using the app at the moment, and that directly interfaces into our housing system. So basically it stops all the people who normally fiddle around and get in the way of things actually happening from having an interface. It goes directly into our system, live, and actually goes through the workflow out to the device for whether it's a maintenance technician, a debt recovery officer, or one of our tenancy enforcement team. So, some quick numbers on benefits, conscious of time. This is what goes to board. I've got a board meeting later. This is our performance dashboard, and you'll see that digital is one of them. So this needs to be driven by board. And as you can see, the last month, 62% of all our customer-led transactions were digital. So we've gone from 0 to 62% in just 18 months. So it can be done if you make the system work and something that your customers would choose to use. But that alone won't do it. So some numerics there that sort of sit behind that. In terms of the transactions, you can see proactive live chat, fantastic. Really has sort of transformed how we use our customer services team. But as you can see, the expensive old ways of delivering the service have dramatically reduced, and people have chosen that route. And one of the other benefits is that internal emails have reduced as well, which is one of my pet hates, but I won't go there. We've also changed the way people can contact us, so we've rationed the more expensive ways of accessing our services and maintain those for people who really do. And the other thing I'd say is that you need digital leadership in your organisation. So what we have developed are the 5 killer digital questions that you might want to ask yourselves and the senior leaders in your business in terms of where they're driving this from. And this needs to be driven from board and also from exec level. And so those questions are there to try and prompt and help that debate. You've also got to challenge your thinking. So, usual thing, we've got a customer contact centre. We've banded our customers now into 4 bands. We spent a lot of time getting information around one thing, their number, their mobile number. And now we band them depending upon what we know about their digital competency, and we have reversed our normal metrics. So our average wait time is good if it's high, if you are digitally capable, because we will keep you waiting whilst we prioritise others who can't. Our average talk time is good if it's high, because we want to spend quality time with the people who are digitally excluded. And abandoned calls, shock horror, is good if it's high, if there's a corresponding increase in digital self-serve transactions out the other end. So again, it's just about being brave and about reversing some of that. One of the other things that's changed is that our customer contact centre now has 50% less people working in it than we did 12 months ago. They are now doing other things in the business. We have not made them all redundant. They are now doing much more work around tenancy support and keeping that money coming in. But also the remainder of our customer services team, we're looking at how we move them to annualised hours and that they work completely from home so that they can deal with the peaks and troughs in terms of what is now, I suppose, a rump in terms of our contact of our business. I mentioned before, the other benefit is that this gets rid of 4 people dabbling in every transaction with the best of intentions, but generally what happens is people say, no, the customer didn't really mean that, therefore what they meant was that. and it's a bit like Chinese whispers. By the time it goes 4 parts down the organisation, the actual thing that somebody asked for bears no resemblance to what you're actually going out and doing for them. So it's removed all of that as well. Lots of information on the blogs that we've posted. Again, links are there. Final thing from me is just reimagining what we do. And I'd say I think the key to our success is keeping it simple. That's our corporate plan. 1-page infographic, nothing else. And it's really clear, and we've had Investors in People Gold twice in terms of the inspections, and they say that they've very rarely been to an organisation where people really understand how they contribute to the corporate priorities of the business. The other thing about housing is we operate a blue light service. It's really bonkers. We all have loads of people who are hanging around waiting for something to go wrong, and then we rush out in a really unplanned, unstructured and dead expensive way to go and fix it. And it's just rubbish. It's rubbish as a service. It's something akin to the 1980s. It's very reactive. Our next thing is around moving that service to be predictive, to use the data that we've got to start actually looking at how we predict using algorithms and some, and believe me, I've got 3 kids, and I'm glad you've changed your name, by the way, because they thought I was having an affair when they heard I was coming to speak at the Tinder Foundation. They said, what's up with Mum? But I think the whole thing is, around, if you're going to get your kids to do anything, get them to be a data scientist. 80 grand coming out of when they're graduating, but fantastic sort of role. And they're able to now start using the fab data that we've got that we do nothing with and absolutely start to predict what's going to happen and when. So, big data, big data. Oh, I like that one. I thought that was quite a good when I did that. Anyway, big data, I think, is a biggie for us in terms of where we go. But word of warning, crap in, crap out. I did a piece of work with about 12 other housing associations, and one housing association had over 100 residents who were more than 150 years old. Now, I know we look after people in social housing, but that's taking it to the extreme. So just be careful in terms of the data that you use. Internet of Things, fantastic. I think it's on the Gartner hype curve. We spent a lot of time last year looking at it. Generally disappointing. Bit of a business case there if you want it. But I think you need to rethink what IoT is available at the moment. So stuff like damp sensors is fantastic, but I would say in terms of our world, they've got much more use and applicability in terms of things like noise and management of noise. So, final thing from me, the world has changed. So, back on the 1st of January, and sorry, I am going to mention Trump, if you'd have put £5 on the following, you'd have got odds of 3 million to 1. So here you go, this is the bet you should have put on. Leicester winning the Premiership, Brexit vote, out, and this guy getting the presidency of the United States, you'd be sat on a cool £15 million. And what I would say to you is go back to 1st of January and think, did I really predict that? So sit back on the 1st of January next year, and think, where could the world take us to? And for me, it's about thinking differently. It's thinking about how Apple get me as a mug to buy absolutely everything that comes out and love it and sort of sing their praises. I think there's also a warning. If you don't embrace change, you end up like another fantastic British brand, a loving brand that has failed miserably. Anybody got a BlackBerry in the room? Anybody got a Black... Yeah. Did you buy it yourself? No, I didn't. It's work. Did you buy it yourself? It's a work one. Absolutely. If I'd have asked that question 6 years ago, 90% of the room would have put their hand up. And that's a really good example of where if you don't keep track with where things are going and what people want, you will die no matter how strong your brand is. So, final one from me. Ask yourselves this question, which we ask ourselves in housing. Remember Uber? Uber don't have any taxis at all. Can you imagine Uber going to the bank and saying, we're going to set up a taxi firm, but we haven't got any cars? If Uber came into your sector and did what you do, what would they do differently? And that's the challenge, I think, going forward. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nick. I know you've got to get off because you've got to catch a train. So can I just ask if you've got any questions at all for Nick, that you tweet them to him. Use our hashtag, and that means that we'll all be able to see the responses. And on Twitter, you are Nick Atkin _HHT. Yeah, so Nick Atkin _HHT.